Fundraisers need to see themselves as leaders. Hi, I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. This is the first day from the Fundraising School, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Mladenka Majerić. She is the CEO of the Yellow Dot Foundation, based in her home country of Croatia. And Mlada, so great to have you with us on the Fundraising Schools podcast.
Thank you so much for the invitation. This is such an honor for me to be with you here today.
Well, the feeling is mutual. Mlada and I had a chance to meet at the Central and Eastern European Fundraising Conference in Bratislava, Slovakia in 2025. And as I've learned about Mlada, she is so well known internationally and especially in Europe for her expertise in nonprofit effectiveness, in developing a philanthropic culture. She serves not just in the Balkans, but across Europe. And Mlada, again, thanks for sharing your expertise with us. And as you've worked in our sector, I've come to understand it's a passion of yours for fundraisers to see themselves as leaders. They most often don't have that top seat. They're not the CEO, and they're certainly not on the board, or they're not the board chair. But fundraisers are leaders. Can you help our audience see your perspective, please?
Of course, because I think at first, because of the influence fundraisers make, and fundraising is a strategic function of the NGO. And I would really like to encourage people, especially fundraisers, but all those who work in NGOs, to see fundraising as something which is much bigger than just raising funds, because it's not only raising funds, it's developing a relationship with donors, but even more developing community. And influencing this community. And when we do fundraising, we actually influence others. We influence others, not only our donors, but our colleagues from other NGOs, and we influence public society. And I think we have to be aware of the values we bring to the society, and especially because fundraising is based on trust. And we as a fundraisers, we are developing this culture of fundraising, developing community who trusts us, then we have to lead it. We have to lead ourselves. We have to develop ourselves. We have to be aware of our responsibility, not only toward our NGOs, toward our beneficiaries, toward our donors, but really to the public in whole. And this is something which I think is a area where leadership skills and leadership thinking is very important.
Mlada, if I'm understanding you correctly, before we talk about that individual who's the fundraiser, that you're describing a situation, a reality, to help fundraisers see themselves in the NGO sector as important, as making a difference. And in this context, in the government context, we think this country has a president, or this town has a mayor, or in the business sector, this is the owner, this is the CEO. But that it sounds like you're encouraging all people who work in the NGO sector to see themselves as equally important. The phrase I like to use is first responders, stepping into some of the most difficult social challenges and social situations to make a difference. Is that fueling your passion as you do this work?
Yes, exactly as you're saying, because I worked before in profit sector, and then I thought, okay, when I go to NGO, it's like maybe much more easier, but it's not. I think it's much more difficult to be a leader in non-profit sector in NGOs, especially because, as you are saying, we are building social capital beside financial capital, which is a result of a fundraising. The most important for me, I would say, capital which fundraisers are developing and building is social capital. So it's something which is based on the values, on relationships, and we really influence lives of people in a different way. And this is why I think we should not see ourselves only as somebody who is providing resources for the mission, but somebody who is changing the society, who can change society, who can make something new, who can and should have a vision how to change society we are living in. And then fundraising is a tool, is actually something which is helping us to do that.
Fundraisers can be so focused on their measurable outcomes, their KPIs. I have my fundraising goal, and did I achieve my fundraising goal? And fundraising is a management process. So we need to measure our work as fundraisers and certainly be held accountable. But I love how you describe the work of the fundraiser as building social capital. So the NGO is serving people or serving a cause. There's a relationship there. The fundraiser has the relationship with the donor. So there's the relationship there. And the fundraiser sits in the middle, in the nexus of all of that, bringing the NGO and the donor and the people being served all together into one association. There's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of influence in that. And for that reason, a lot of fundraisers need to be leaders and see themselves for the leadership that they're providing.
Well, I was listening to your course, Fundraising is in Leadership, Leadership and Fundraising, sorry, and I completely agree with you because fundraising, good fundraising, I would say exquisite fundraising requires leadership thinking. And it would be, I would think it would be maybe even... it would be not good that we just stay on the management level, that we just plan and deliver and execute. I think we should think broader and really think about our own vision of how we can change society with fundraising, not only to support our organization, but to support our colleagues, to work together, to develop together some kind of activities. And this is why we started with a foundation in Croatia, because I think it's important that we also develop our community of fundraisers, community of NGO leaders. And this is something which is necessary if we want to, I would say at first, if we want to be responsible towards the donors.
I love that phrase, exquisite fundraising, not just excellent, not just exceptional, but exquisite fundraising. And what a great way to see ourselves in our work as fundraisers. So Mlada, you've really helped inspire us and encourage us for fundraisers to see themselves as the leaders who they are and to strengthen their leadership. That's the work of the Yellow Dot Foundation that not only just builds capacity of NGOs, but also builds a culture of philanthropy within the NGO, within the fundraising community, within the donor class to strengthen philanthropy. Mlada, so our audience, I'm sure, is saying, okay, I get it. Sign me up. But how? I'm not the boss. I don't have the ultimate authority. I don't have the ultimate power. As you're working with NGOs, how are you coaching fundraisers to really maximize the influence that they do have, even if they don't have that ultimate authority?
Well, leadership is a communication. So if you want to develop your leadership skill, if we want to develop ourselves as leaders, we first have to start to communicate. And then we don't have to have like a leadership position in the organization, but if we are talking to donors and if we are talking to public, and we are as a fundraisers, we have to communicate, then it's already a leadership position. And then we have to be aware that we are presenting, we as a fundraisers are giving the image and image of our organization to the donors. So donors see organization and our mission through us. We are serving the mission, and we are serving the image that donors and public in general have about our organization. And this is something which we have to be aware. I think it's the most important thing that we are aware that our communication, our public appearances, our public speaking, our one face-to-face or one-to-one conversation with donor, with different stakeholders, is actually where we profess our leadership, our values, our integrity, our ethical behavior. And each of this relationship, each of this person is important. And this is how we build social capital. In developing social capital, it's every person counts and every person is important. And we actually represent our mission in communication with these different people.
What Mlada is explaining is what we teach at the fundraising school in the leadership course that she mentioned, Effective Leadership, Successful Fundraising, as referent power. We can refer to you as a team player, as an avatar of the mission, of the cause, of the NGO. And that because of that reason, people see us, the way we act, the way we behave, the way we speak, because we build the reputation of the nonprofit, we build trust for the nonprofit, which of course can strengthen our fundraising. It's one of three soft powers. The other is information that we have and expertise that we have that allows us to lead up and lead across. And in that course, Mlada, as you know, and perhaps we can conclude on this, please, we talk about self-care. Building that social capital through exquisite fundraising can be stressful. It can be hard. There's a new challenge every year, and it can be maybe there's less foundation funding in this particular year, or another government that was funding in our nation no longer is, or is doing so at a lower level, or maybe our older generations, because of the way they were raised in certain geopolitical situations, weren't able to build wealth and would love to be able to donate, but can't. And so I have to adjust to the younger generations, maybe more than others. I learned that in Bratislava at the conference that we attended. So, there's all these stresses and all these pressures that fundraisers can feel. What coaching do you provide? What advice can you provide to our audience in terms of that self-care, so that these fundraisers who are leaders can be taking care of themselves properly so that they can lead effectively?
Well, with fundraising and fundraisers is so much about expectations. And as you were mentioning, there are so many challenges outside in which we work. The first thing I think you have to love what you do. And my colleague who taught me about fundraising, Gary Edwards, he always asked me, "Are you having fun when you do fundraising?" And I would even say maybe not fun, but are we having joy? Because joy means that at the same time we face difficulties, and we are aware of so many challenges that are just coming along the way. But also we know why we do that. And I usually suggest to my colleagues and people I coach in this fundraising area is that they always have to go back to the mission. And one thing which is mostly, I would say, inspiring and motivating is to see beneficiaries, that we see the people whom we serve, that we go to beneficiaries, talk with them. And then you get the sense, okay, this is why I'm doing it. This is why I can endure when it is difficult. But on the other side, it's always good to have support. Fundraisers should not be alone. Sometimes they are alone in the organization. Maybe they don't have support they need to have, usually because there's not enough people, or we always have this shortage in staff in non-profit organizations. But I think it's good that we found somebody who can support us. I do lots of coaching with young people, with young fundraisers. This is something which I really like. And we can get support from older colleagues. We can get it also pro bono. Maybe we can have some kind of community of fundraisers. But without support, it's difficult to be alone in fundraising challenges.
And fundraising is the gentle art of teaching the joy of giving. And Mlada mentioned that as fundraisers, we need to focus on that joy. In fact, I always say, I feel sorry for people who don't fundraise, because we are in the joy delivery business, and we need to remember that. And as Mlada just advised us to remember how our missions are improving lives and making the world a better place, while we're also making sure we're providing that important self-care. Mladenka Majerić, thank you so much for being with us on the Fundraising Schools podcast. And I also need to point out to our audience, Mlada is an advisor to the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy for our Global Philanthropy Environment Index, where we report on philanthropy in over 70 economies around the world. And we look for local experts in particular countries and regions. And Mlada, you serve in that role for us. Thank you for all that you're doing to strengthen philanthropy, not just there in Zagreb, Croatia, but around the world. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
The leadership course that we've been talking about today is part of our certificate in fundraising leadership, one of 27 courses leading to 5 different certificates in person in the United States and around the world online. We also can bring custom training to your nonprofit, your association, your region, your country. We can do that as well. And we have our quarterly webinars. We have this weekly podcast. And of course, all of our wisdom gathered in our textbook, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. Make sure you look for the 5th edition. Find this information online at go.iu.edu/TFRS for the Fundraising School. Our producers are Jennifer Boffman and Mike Anthony. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz, and now you are now more fully informed on this first day from the Fundraising School.